thank you very much for inviting me and my wonderful crew of women who will each read one of their poems after I read just a couple. So I'm going to start with one from Holding Up Half the Sky, which was found poetry really, where Rosemary and I took women throughout history who for various reasons hadn't had a voice of their own. And this particular one is about Marjorie Kemp, a 14th century mystic. And it's sort of playing with the idea of all the things that get left out of women's history because either they're not literate or they're not published or whatever. So this is British Library manuscript additional 61823, a partial chronology, and it's from Holding Up Half the Sky, and I'll give you the details later of where you can buy these if you want. Circa 1373, Marjorie born to Brunham, Mayor of King's Lynn. Circa 1393, Marjorie marries John Kemp. 1413 to 1433, she bears 14 children, takes a vow of chastity, which is approved by a bishop and accepted by her husband. She weeps a great deal, fabricates a hair shirt from sacking procured from a malt drying kiln. She continues to weep. She travels, sometimes without a chaperone. She visits Anchoress Julian in Norwich, and her tears are confirmed as holy. She visits Venice, Assisi, Rome, Jerusalem, Santiago de Compostela, Prussia, also Great Yarmouth, Hull, and Ely. She kisses lepers on the lips. She interviews bishops and archbishops, is arrested and examined, is arrested and accused of witchcraft, heresy. Her learning is cause for suspicion. She weeps. She writes. Is arrested and imprisoned. She writes that she would rather lie with God than with her husband. She writes about family, fashion, lust, liking, corruption, ecclesiastical matters, plants. She fills her soul with the company of heaven. Sometime after 1438, she dies. Scribes copy out her book. Better scribes recopy it. Saltow's fair copy is placed in the library at Mount Grace Priory, North York Riding of Yorkshire. 1539, the monastery is dissolved. 1600, silence. Her book lies still. 1700, silence. Her book is lost. 1800, silence. Her book is done. 1934, Hope Emily Allen discovers Marjorie's book among the affairs of the Butler Bowden family in Lancashire. It is catalogued by the British Library. Hope smiles through Marjorie's tears. And I am going to read from Fit to Bust, which I did with the wonderful Pamela Scobie, who's also going to read tonight. And this is rather different to the previous book in that we made up a lot of these stories. Some of them are true, and there are some very different, some real people in here. And we talk about all sorts of things. And the only way really to find out everything that's in it from the wonderful French flaps that Kathleen Stratford, our publisher, who's also here, produced for us in this lovely book, is to buy a copy, either from me or Pam. And I'll put my email address in the chat box later so that you can know how to get in touch with me. Okay, so this is just one from Fit to Bust. And then I'll be introducing my other guest readers who are reading from the Electrifying Women project. Staying buoyant. Single mastectomy. Clean cut from a toxic past. The red hot seam of scar inspected and approved. The healing could begin. Patient discharged. Smiles inspected. The life that had been dropped when the lump was found now surfaces again. Invitation to a wedding accepted. Double room booked. A spa room with hotel. She's fitted for a special bra. Acquires the right weight of prosthetic breast. But will the swimsuit cope? A friend with nimble fingers shapes a pouch. Attaches it inside the bodice, with stitches neat as sutures. She's good to go, her falsely safely stowed, and underneath the silicone, the stitches knit themselves like little kisses. Thank you. People say, I'm gathering people can't hear me. I don't know what the problem is. Sorry if you weren't able to hear them. I mean, I'm as close to the microphone as I ever am, but anyway. So, but those were two. And if you want to buy copies of the books, I'll put my email address in the chat box, and you can email me and get a copy. As Barbara said, I've been involved in 3 of these Electrifying Women anthologies, of which there are 2 here. And my guests are going to read from them. The brief was to celebrate the centenary of the Women's Engineering Society, which was in 2019. And we had some funding from a University of Leeds project, and I invited people to write on those topics. So I'm going to let individual people introduce themselves. First up, we have Liz McPherson, who's going to read Decorative Electricity. So would you like to introduce yourself, Liz, and say a sentence or 2 about your poem?
Yes, I can do that. It's taken from one of the books that you had at the workshops that we did, Hannah. And this is a lady who was involved with the electricity, but because she was a woman, can people hear me, by the way? Can people hear okay? That's okay then. Because she was a woman, the book was published in her husband's name, but she did write part of it, although she didn't really get the credit for it. So this is electricity in the home in the early days. Decorative electricity. You see, my dear, it is my pleasure to wring from iron these drops of golden light, like honey from the hive in summer, saved up to serve a feast on winter nights. The curlicues and cormorants weave graceful coils and drapes, enhance the writing room, a writing desk, breathe life into a hidden gloomy niche. You see that dragon over there? His head hangs low, and in his metal mouth he holds a ball of shimmering air. A cupid, swathed with loincloth, sheds sun-drenched rays onto my dinner guests. Moreover, should your safety be a fear, please rest assured, compared to gas or candles, there is no hazard here. It is the future. Now, if you're agreeable, I'll switch it off. See how the spark is quenched at once. We're frugal people in this house, and also, you'll remark, we marry science with exquisite art. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Liz has contributed to all 3 of the anthologies, I think, and quite a lot of the Otley poets have done so. Our next reader is Moira Garland, who's going to read Do Her Ovaries Get in the Way?
Thank you, Hannah. So this is taken from the second book, Even More Electrifying Women. And I'm going to screen share it. I think it'll be advantageous. I'll just say a little bit about it, other than saying Happy International Women's Day. And the title of this poem was taken from a friend, Stephanie Jones, who I first heard the phrase, and you'll see and hear it in a minute. So I'll attempt to screen share and then read it. Can everybody see that? Okay, so it's called Do Her Ovaries Get in the Way of His Thinking? He thinks she doesn't pass the Turing test, as if she is too queer, not suitably dressed. He is like a robot, won't acknowledge her neural networks, yet she is digital in every limb. While his software claims to be open source, she climbs heavy ladders to get inside the wires. He thinks Occam's razor is predicting certain genitals, women hypothetical. He's heard she has no spiking neural networks, mistakes her for a sex bot. His opinion too heuristic, needs open mind common sense and superior analytics. Fuzzy set, he decrees only binary will do. 1 equals he, 0 equals she. Not artificially intelligent, she fully comprehends. She enhances his humanity, adding names to his reality. Ada, Amy, Laura Annie. Works autonomously, is capable, stays tough and durable. Creates adaptive algorithms, sister to the pattern of bees. Thank you.
Thanks, Moira. So Even More Electrifying Women was produced completely during lockdown, which was really great. It was lovely to be able to do something, even though we weren't able to be together in person. And people were allowed to choose anything really that inspired them to do with women who were engineers or involved in science in some way. And Sandra Burnett chose, it could be the fan on the computer, but I can't do anything about that, Michael. So can we just, let's just, fortunately you've only got to hear me introducing the poets, and then you'll be able to go over to them. Sandra Burnett wrote a poem for Mary Elizabeth Anderson, and she's going to read that to us next. Over to you, Sandra.
Hi, thanks, Anna. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes, I wrote a poem for Mary Elizabeth Anderson, who invented the windscreen wiper, just unfortunately a little bit before cars began to be mass produced. So this is a poem for Mary Elizabeth Anderson. It takes a certain savoir-faire to put yourself in another's shoes and figure out what needs to improve. On a typical January New York morning, with snow throwing itself around, Miss Anderson hails a streetcar heading for Macy's in Herald Square. For a woman managing a vineyard and ranch, it irritates to watch a driver repeatedly stop, jump from his cab and frantically scrape the windscreen, left to right, right to left. Arriving at her favourite shop, she buys pencils and a sketch pad. Now, this is a Wikipedia fact that requires verification, but poets with a need for notebooks would not argue. In 1903, Mary was granted a 17-year patent on her windscreen cleaning device. Demand proved slight. Henry Ford had yet to tool up for mass production. I will not bore you with the date, but when Cadillac began to fit her invention, she'd little to gain. Much like being inducted into the International Inventors Hall of Fame, almost 60 years after you've died. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I think you illustrate very well there how women are often underappreciated, and how their inventions and everything they do can be actually appropriated by men, and it's only when men kind of think they've invented something that it gets its patent or actually gets any publicity. Ros York, who's going to read to us next, taken a completely different tack, and she's one of several people who's written about Amy Johnson. So Ros, would you read At a Girl for us?
Hello. Yes, At a Girl is sort of about Amy Johnson, but it's also about Lettice Curtis and Mary Ellis. They were the air transport auxiliary flyers in World War II, and Mary Ellis in particular was known as the fog flyer because she delivered a plane when all the airfields were grounded due to fog. So it starts with a quote from Amy Johnson. At a Girl. No one had faith in me except myself. I hit the sky, corseted in fuselage, throttle out over the sea's glass floor and bank until the horizon's upright. If she stalls, I'll drop the nose, throw her down until her engines wake, biting snow out of the clouds. The men are playing cards. Strands of cigarette smoke coil blue-grey in fog. We're grounded on orders. Ancient and tattered are staying put, but I'll fly anything, anywhere. There's nothing silken about me, save my flight map. It knows the way land curves to journey's end. I'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ros. Wonderful poem, lovely imagery in that. And again, women doing all sorts of stuff behind the scenes that men wouldn't be able to manage without. So you do need us, guys. You really do. We had so much fun doing the first two Electrifying Women projects that our gracious patron, who is anonymous, but some of us know who he is, decided we should do another one. And we decided we desperately, in the final throes of lockdown, needed something funny. So I suggested we did something on when machines malfunction. And we came up with this: things fall apart, mischievous machines. And the brief for that was it had to reference something that went wrong in science or engineering or technology, which could be made up, but it had to have some basis in fact, and it had to be funny. One of the funniest poets I know is Pam Scobie. I was absolutely thrilled to collaborate with her, and she's going to read from this latest volume, A Matter of Some Gravity.
Hello. Yes, it was a tall order, I think, trying to combine real events with barefaced lies, essentially. So there's a footnote at the bottom of this poem after I've read it, which will explain all. A Matter of Some Gravity. Maria Beasley, as you doubtless know, the engineering dynamo, took out new patents every chance she could. That thing for making barrels out of wood was one of hers. An output close to manic included life rafts for a boat called the Titanic. A fact which isn't quite as widely known is that she had disasters of her own. I found a prototype the other day in a defunct museum tucked away, a sort of iron corselet with wires attached. You ladies, I can bet, will guess its function. Thus the rubric states: with particles accelerated at high rates through an electrified magnetic plate, the weight away will shift that surplus weight. Just climb inside it, girls, and turn it on. Avoir du poids will very soon be gone. Maria, ever conscious of her status, was duty-bound to test her apparatus. She threw the switch, the wires hummed and fizzed, the hinges sparked. She gasped, "I'm done, by jizz!" Then took it off and laid it on a chair and promptly floated up into the air. If someone hadn't grabbed her by her feet, she would have sailed away along the street. She'd lost the weight, but not the surplus fat. You don't get patented for that. Thereafter, she wore iron clogs in bed and always lined her underwear with lead. How do I know? I'm growing rather stout, and so I thought I'd try the blighter out. But now I'm even fatter than before, although my fairy feet don't touch the floor. What's more, these days I draw admiring glances from chaps who like to fling me round at dances. Alas, no suitor ever asks me out. I'm not called Iron Drawers for now. And the footnote explains it is possible that this poet has confused the eminent Mrs. Maria E. Beasley of Philadelphia, 1847 to 1904, entrepreneuse and inventor of the steam generator and foot warmer, with the notorious charlatan Mary Beasley of Basingstoke, who claimed astonishing results with her patent remedies. Here's an example of one of her advertising slogans: cures pimples, piles, and facial hair with dephlogisticated air. I leave you to draw your own conclusions.
Wonderful stuff, Pam. Thank you. We do need to laugh in these days, don't we? And our final poet, who again has appeared in several of the volumes, is Vanda Phillips, and she's going to read You Don't Ask an Engineer to Make Coffee. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and happy International Women's Day. Now, my laptop crashed a couple of minutes ago, so I had to sign in again. So I'm really apologise if it happens in the middle of my reading. And if I disappear forever, I'm really sorry as well. My poem is about Frances Poppy Northcote, who at the age of 25 was the first woman to be employed by NASA in mission control. And she devised the program Mission Abort, also known as Bring It Back, which was used for Apollo 8, the first manned mission to circle the moon. And the same program was used to retrieve the Apollo 13 astronauts in the mid-flight disaster. She went on to be a lawyer and a women's rights activist, and she's still a champion for women's rights. Lovely lady. She must be about 78 now. And I did invite her to join us this evening. She's probably tucked up in bed, and she didn't get back to me. So this poem is called You Don't Ask an Engineer to Make Coffee. When the first woman came to work on Apollo 8, the team had to be briefed. Concerns were raised and questions asked. What kind of name is that? Can she make good coffee? Does she smoke a pipe? Poppy is an engineer, y'all. Get used to that. In a sea of slide rules and Y chromosomes, her specialism was return to Earth. Flying craft to orbit for eternity was done, but returning men from beyond Earth's atmosphere, her trajectory path could bring death near, or worse. One moonside miscalculation, you just can't bring them back. Carrying the same burden, 300,000 miles away, live on camera, for a hungry public feed, they wait. Hardly breathing, hearts barely beating, wait for Apollo on the dark side to appear. Every second it is late, terrifying. Then a signal beeps, comms with the capsule restored. I brought them safely home. That's my job, Poppy said. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanda. And thank you to all my lovely sisters who joined me here today to celebrate International Women's Day. And thank you for hosting us. And I'm sorry you weren't able to hear me so well at the beginning. Do get in touch with me if you want to get copies of any of these books. My email is in the chat box, and I can arrange for you to get copies of any of those. Thank you very much.